Hello, listeners. Welcome to this brand new episode of Namma Vodcast. Joining us today are two very special guests. We have Subhashini and Rishabh and Nandini behind camera, of course. So the topic that we'll be discussing today is basically how to fight misinformation, fake news, and basically challenge the narrative that WhatsApp University has, kind of proven to be, right? So to just kickstart our discussion, Subhashini, what is your understanding of misinformation, and why do you think it's important to, kind of challenge it?
Okay, so I think coming from the field that I do, that is the media field, misinformation is something that's quite commonplace. So it is like something that I am so glad to be discussing with you all today. So in more common terms, or as it is called in most places today, as fake news. So this is something wherein information that is not correct, incorrect information, completely that information that is not true at all is sort of disseminated to the public, and it creates a lot of chaos among public. The reason why it's important to address it is the consequences of the same. You never know what it may lead to. So I believe it is quite, the topic that we need to be talking about.
Absolutely, and you do bring in some fair points. And Rishabh, I'm sure you've come across examples of misinformation and fake news yourself. So would you like to share some of them?
There have been very common examples like through the last 1 or 2 years. If you see a lot of news coming about, a lot of celebrities or actors' deaths, or so lot of, even if you look at the sports field, for example, there are a lot of rumors that are made based for information, and then it just spreads everywhere across social media. So across a lot of these entertainment sectors as well, that a lot of, I don't know if I should even call it news, gets spread, and it spreads like wildfire.
And just extrapolating more on your pointer, Subhashini, you said that fake news does have this impact, and misinformation can actually have a lot of consequences. So have you come across any consequences that have actually proven to be detrimental to the human race itself?
I think one thing that I can actually right on top of my mind is the sort of misinformation that was passed around during the COVID-19 pandemic. So there was a lot on how a lot of these home remedies can cure COVID and all of that. And I remember very starkly this one thing that was going around, that cow urine can sort of cure coronavirus. So I also know there was news of actually people sort of consuming it so that they could make the virus go away. So I think this is like one example that shows how it can impact people, and a lot of people don't really have enough knowledge to sort of judge whether this is right or if it is false. So I think misinformation in such places can really prove to be quite hazardous.
Definitely. And even us, as aspiring journalists, Rishabh, do you think we can actually try to spread this message for media literacy and try to, get people more aware about tools they can use to kind of challenge this fake news?
Definitely, I think it all comes down to leveraging the power of social media, because that is the place where it's all getting spread. So we can use that space itself to spread information that you need to be aware. One basic thing that people can do is, whenever you come across any information and it looks skeptical to you, you can always use the search engine and do your research and look for, has it been quoted or has it been put out by a credible source. That's the bare minimum that you can do before you spread it to someone else, so that it doesn't spread. So if it's a person at a time, that way, and that's how you can break the chain.
Definitely, and I think when you look at fake news and misinformation, the role of AI is very pertinent to look here, right? Because WhatsApp is the place where news like this spreads like rapid fire, and we've seen the kind of consequences for that. So even as tech companies, do you think they should actually take ownership and responsibility to kind of stop the fake news right at the start? And there are measures, right, that have come into play.
So the measures that have come into play, for example, is WhatsApp has this feature where it shows forwarded many times, and those are the messages that sort of plague all these family groups in general, because there are so many forwards, and not a lot of people on those groups also fall in an age group where they can determine that if it is forwarded many times, it is most probably fake. They don't have that understanding. So I think as tech companies, they should sort of have more stringent measures to curb fake news. That I'm not sure how they can go about it and what sort of technology they can have in their system, but I think they should have something that's more stricter in place.
Fair enough. And again, kind of building on this point now, even when tech companies can, be the change that we all want to see, do you think they can actually come up with measures for content moderation, have like a proper team that's looking into how information is being disseminated across the portals?
Definitely, I think the point that you bring up about having a team that can, overlook all of this information that is being passed does make sense, but the implementation part of it, I'm not really sure, because it's a country of like such a huge population, right? And everybody has such easy access to internet and social media these days. So that is a challenge as to how they would do it. But I definitely feel the idea can be played around with, and if they could come up with something meaningful and something that actually works, then it's obviously going to benefit.
That's again great points that you both bring up, and looking at even how these companies work, right? Now they of course thrive on a lot of clickbait and a lot of content that kind of is sensational and grabs everyone's eyeballs, right? So in that sort of an ethical scenario where they want a lot of people to log into their platforms to get that attention, but at the same time you're kind of disseminating or being that means through which this information is getting spread. So how do you look at this conundrum, and how do you think tech companies can probably find a way around that?
Okay, so like you sort of mentioned, and building upon it, these tech companies also sort of want the attention, or whatever you call it. They want to drive traffic towards whatever content they are like producing, and that is as clickbaity as it is. That's what they aim to do. So I think the problem is within the system itself, when they themselves sort of want to promote such things. I don't know how they will actually. It's quite contradictory to what they're supposed to be doing.
It's a very fundamental problem, I feel.
Yeah.
Certainly, and elaborating more on this concept now, the echo chamber, right? So, for example, you are used to consuming a certain type of content, your algorithm will throw only that sort of thing. So, what happens is you get inundated and you see only a certain type of content. So, again, do you think it's time kind of question these algorithms and see how that entire thing functions?
There's this whole talk about privacy that happens when this comes up, right? You Google up something and next second you open Instagram and you see ads of all of that. So it's like there is constant tracking and monitoring. So if there is constant tracking and monitoring for this thing, then why can't this same thing be done to curb the fake information that is being spread? If they do have the bandwidth for this, then why not? Why can't it be used for a better purpose, I feel?
Certainly, and even looking at misinformation and fake news, it's I think important to acknowledge the problem right at its root. Now, a lot of people don't know that this actually exists and it's a phenomena. So, to the lay masses, how do you bring about this message? Just put it out that hey, you need to take whatever you read with a pinch of salt and not just take every forward on WhatsApp like seriously. I'm pretty sure you've come across like medicinal cures and everything on WhatsApp as well, right? So, to the common masses, is there a way to disseminate the message? Can somebody step in or anything like that?
So I think, since most people, at least across the country, have smartphones today, the basic thing that they can do is actually go look up the information. The very first thing they can do, like Rishabh also mentioned earlier, is to fact check. And there are a lot of sites that actually have separate fact checking, measures in place. So you have this separate section on the media house, the Queen's page, so which is called Webproof, and they sort of break down all these fake news and then they tell what is real. Similarly, there's also this thing that the Logical Indian sort of runs, and they also go on to like break fake news and then tell people that this is what is real, so don't believe it. So maybe go to fact checking websites like that, or just do a simple Google search and like look at news. So maybe you will find something there and you will know that this is not true.
And yeah, that pretty much does conclude our discussion. I'd like to thank our guests Subhashini and Rishabh for joining the podcast and sharing these lovely insights. And for you viewers, please stay tuned for a lot of fun episodes like this and insightful stuff. And until next time, take care and bye for now.